Welcome, FanExpo, to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is producer Richard, and next to me is the doctor himself.
Hello.
Each week, we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC while fielding questions from listeners like all of you. But we are not alone today. Today, we are joined by DC artist Jamal Campbell.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us, Jamal.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
I'm barely alive right now, so this is fantastic.
We went out last night.
Yeah. Sorry, Stump. We went out. We went after. Yeah. We were gonna go back to the hotel, and then we honestly got back to the hotel, dropped off everything, and then we're like, a couple more. I really wanted to play Baldur's Gate, but the plan was to keep going out.
So my first question for Jamal is, what's the best drink to draw with?
Whatever someone gives you.
Yeah, that's the best kind of drink. Yeah,
no, we're big fans of your work. I mean,
incredibly big.
I love Far Sector.
Thank you.
I love Superman, but
here's a couple things that I didn't like.
but I have notes. Yeah. No, I thought we'd start with, the path to getting into the comic industry is different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
What was your way in?
Well, for me, I worked with different companies, so with every company, it's just a different way to get
Sure,
in.
yeah.
So my first thing was with Marvel. So here,
Boo! No.
so here at FanExpo, they all do portfolio reviews.
Right.
So went to a portfolio review. They liked my stuff.
Was this at a con? Or?
Yeah, this was at FanExpo 2014.
Oh, wow.
Hey,
I
there.
think I was just straight out of college, so.
Wow.
So yeah, that's how I got my Marvel stuff, and then I did stuff with Boom as well.
Right.
So with that, I liked Power Rangers as a kid, so I've always been drawing fan art of that. Just posted it up to Tumblr, not thinking of anything.
Did you watch the new Power Rangers thing that just came out?
Just came out.
Did it, or has it come out yet? They
I don't what the one where they bring back
they bring
Billy
all
or whatever.
Yeah, I think it might be on
I
Netflix.
haven't seen it yet. But I just posted that to Tumblr, not thinking of anything, not knowing that Boom was doing a Power Rangers book the following year.
That's
so
awesome.
one of the editors saw that and just brought me into it.
So then you said you liked Power Rangers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Did you always know that you kind of wanted to draw comics or work that way, or was it just you like the stuff you like?
Yeah,
you just
I like
spend
the stuff
time doodling.
I'm draw, and I have nothing better to do as a kid. So
What was your kind of first superhero-y stuff? I mean, Power Rangers counts for sure, but what was your first kind of Marvel, DC, Image stuff that you really latched onto? Do you have a favorite character?
Yeah. Well, my favorite character is Nightwing.
Oh, nice.
So
yeah.
I had a couple Nightwing comics, not a full thing, because I was 6 years old. I wasn't collecting comics at the time.
Sure, yeah.
So it was just a random assortment of different issues. And then I was a cartoon kid growing up, so
Right.
The 90s animated series where at first he was just Robin, and then in the next season, just Nightwing shows up. I'm just like, who is that?
yeah.
And I just thought it was cool seeing Robin grow up into that, because you never really see that.
Yeah,
And
totally.
did he ever grow up?
And he got taller.
Yes.
I'm not talking about his front, that's for sure.
Is that what we call it?
Yeah.
That's amazing. So then, when you start working for on an actual comic, and you're doing kind of month to month, or you're working on covers and that, how do you kind of set up your work life? Because I know for me, when I had to work at home during the pandemic, the motivation was lacking, and I got to imagine that as an artist, you got to be pretty disciplined.
Yeah.
How do you keep on track?
Well, the good thing is most comic artists are insane.
Sure.
So when you tell us to draw, we're going to do it.
Right.
When you tell us not to draw, we're going to do it.
Fair enough.
So there isn't really we don't need motivation to draw. We're just
Right.
going to do it anyway. The problem is getting us not to draw and leave our studios and actually live life.
You're right. Yeah.
Do you find that you are not drawing casually anymore? Is that happening there, or most of your work does it mostly end up as actual work now?
Yeah, it's mostly work. Especially since I started doing actual issues and interiors and stuff.
Right.
That just takes so much time
Totally.
that kind of once I'm done with that, I don't want to draw, look at a pencil, look at a comic. I just want to.
That's fair. Yeah. Do you have a preferred way of working alongside a writer? Because I know, there's so many different relationships, and it's also probably evolved over time. Like, do you like when there's like not much direction at all?
Like a rough outline.
You can figure it out, or what do you prefer?
I mean, I like to put as much as I can into my work, so I've actually been really lucky working with both Joshua Williamson on Superman and Brian Michael Bendis and David Walker on Naomi.
Yeah.
Like, they were all pretty much open to whatever I wanted to do. Say they would bring me on like story meetings even.
Right.
So I can like have my input in that.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Versus like Far Sector, all of that was pretty much written before I got onto the book.
Right.
Like, they had another artist that couldn't work out, so when I got on, all of that was written already. So I didn't have as much say into the actual story.
Sure.
But then Nora was like, I don't know how to draw, I don't know how this works, so she pretty much gave me carte blanche to do anything I wanted on that book.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I still had that freedom, even if not in the events that happened, just how it looked.
Right, so it's the difference between like being right there at the beginning to sort of guide the story.
And that's all I've worked on, so I feel like I've been pretty much spoiled. So if I get a writer next time that's like, no, I want this done this way, I'm just going to be like, I don't know if I can do that. You're going to have to hold this.
I'm sorry, Grant Morrison. I refuse. Won't happen. I mean, honestly, that book, that Far Sector, is probably some of the best art I've ever seen in a comic.
Thank you.
I mean, it is unbelievable.
Yeah, favorite book.
Yeah.
When my editor pitched me that book, is like, hey, we're going to do this kind of weird thing. It's not really connected, but it's Green Lantern and it's cyberpunk. And it's like, hey, you have me at that?
yeah, totally.
Yeah, that book is so good.
How do you feel like, as an artist, with this thing that you helped create and you helped like start, now it takes on its own life, because now Joe is off on other adventures doing other things? Is there like a part of you that's like, trying to pull her into Superman? Like,
No.
like that's my character.
I feel like the whole thing with comics is like, the fun thing is getting to see the characters in other people's hands.
Yeah.
So like, I've seen people draw Joe's hair slightly differently, like different body type, different like facial expressions, and I think that's just cool, because like, if it was just me drawing her, it would just be the thing you saw in Far Sector and nothing else. There'd be no room to like evolve or see other like versions or things like that. So
God, that's such a healthy way to think about that. It's not what Tom Grummett said.
Yes, I would be too possessive.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious. We got some questions from some of our regular listeners.
Yeah.
And we can take some questions here too.
Yeah.
But people wanted to learn some stuff from you.
Oh yeah. So let's go over to the Discord.
Damn it.
Come on, Reed. We're right in front of FanExpo.
Dox my score tonight. I'm gonna dox that score till I see the light.
Oh God, it's so much better when it's in front of public.
Do you know, I never really think about it because we don't do live shows that often, but when you do something just dumb in the privacy of your own home, it becomes
you have to recommend
habit
people
on the
looking
show.
at you.
You gotta do it while people are like eyes on you.
Look for the things that you could get in trouble for in public that are awkward to do. That's from in your bedroom. I'm just saying that this is not that bad.
I also think I might have used "Take Me Out Tonight" before, but I'm not going back and redoing it.
You know what? No, you might have absolutely. Why would you call yourself out for that?
Because I'm very honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, let's get to some of the questions. What's more embarrassing than the song is the names of the people that are asking questions. So, first question comes from Holodeck Janitor Butt, who asks, what was your favorite panel that you've drawn in Far Sector?
Oh God, panel.
Yeah.
Expect me to remember everything.
You gotta
I've drawn?
narrow it down.
Or like even just maybe even just like your favorite like interior or cover that you've done. Let's open it up beyond Far Sector even.
Yeah.
What? Just choose one of your children to love more. I don't understand. That's fine.
I mean, the problem isn't loving my children. My problem is remembering them. I mean, I draw so much stuff.
The problem is they're all such disappointments.
Okay, but
I hear you.
I will say the thing that first comes to mind is in issue 1, I did this panel of when Joe is sort of like, I think she's in a car heading to like the government office or something.
Right.
And it was mostly just a cityscape with like a big tower, and like the panels were like kaleidoscoping like downwards.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And it was really fun to draw because I love drawing like exteriors and cityscapes, even though they take way too long to draw.
Right. Yeah.
But that was specifically the page that when I submitted it to like the writer and my editors, like Nora was like, "Oh my god!"
Right.
Like that was the first time I got that reaction.
Oh,
from
that's
her.
cool. Yeah.
I know you get Green Lantern, you're like, oh, this is gonna be so easy. Just a character in space. This is
Yeah.
gonna be so easy.
And then, oh wait, there's all these buildings. What?
or they tell you they want it to look like Kirby, and you're like, no.
Do you have any like secret hidden artist wisdom for like? Do you have any shortcuts when you're like, I gotta draw like 150 windows in this cityscape? Like, is there a shortcut, or are you just that good that you can do it real quick, or is it as painstaking as I'm imagining it?
Yeah, you kind of just have to either cover everything in shadow,
Right.
or realize you are not sleeping tonight.
It was funny. I've interviewed an artist once who was like, some of my favorite work he's done is pointillism, and he was like, if you see me do pointillism, it's because I really didn't want to do the extra work. He was like, just doing little dots. Oh, that's not so bad.
Just brain off, just pencil. Dot,
Yeah,
dot,
exactly.
dot, dot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, well, let's go to the next question from the moral compass of the Doc Squared, who asks, what are the differences between comic art styles around the world, American versus European versus Japanese, and which styles do you draw the most influence from?
I mean, there's as many styles as countries as people in those countries.
Totally.
But, like,
Right.
you know, American, and also like styles change over time. So like you had the '90s where everything was like super angular and extreme and shadows.
We don't
and
talk about the
cross-hatching
90s, yeah.
and
Yeah.
pouches, and then you get into like the 2000s where everything was like more streamlined, like more open line, less cross hatching, less scribbling.
Right.
So like even just in American comics, that changes constantly.
Joe has a little pouch
Yeah.
on her costume. We're like, is that because you're nostalgic for the 90s?
Maybe subconsciously. I don't know. I was
Yeah.
like, when designing characters, I kind of just scribble
Right.
like constantly, and then just pick out which parts I like,
Right.
and then put them all together. So you never know.
Does it ever work the opposite way to what you were describing when you go in on a story meeting? Does it work the other way too, where like did Nora go, I have an idea for the outfit or anything like that? She just go, you do it.
Not really. Like
Yeah.
her specifically, she was very much like, I know writing, I know stories, I don't know art. So
Right.
like she left everything up to me.
That's nice, yeah.
Have you ever had any like clashes with like publishers or anything like that?
I wouldn't say clashes.
Name names.
I was going to say,
closest thing is like-
what an insane question.
I mean, more of like I wanted to do a thing and they didn't want that, or
No, everything's been pretty open. The only like the closest thing to that is there's an issue of Far Sector where like the cover was like Joe like from behind like facing off against people.
Right,
And
sure.
like over the issue, the way I've drew Joe changed in
Right.
that her hair got bigger and
Right.
her ass got bigger.
Right. Yeah.
So like
all
that
those years with
shot
Dick Grayson, I
specifically was
get
just,
it.
like,
Yeah.
Joe facing off, ass in front of the camera.
Right.
And like that DC has like, proofreaders and like, hey, you can't really do this. So that's the first
yeah. Look at
cover
you,
that came back
Power
to me. It was
Girl.
like, hey, can you like shrink her ass down a bit, make it less extreme? And like Nora like fought for me like, no.
Oh,
like,
that's kind of nice, yeah.
Joe has that figure, she has that ass, we're going
Yeah.
to show it.
Yeah.
Yeah, see that there's not two C's for a reason, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just saying.
That's awesome.
All right.
But yeah, so I mean, style wise,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say are kind of your big
like
influences?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, like I take a lot from like I guess 3 specific artists, and they're like Western American comic artists, and like I feel like my style is pretty dead center. Like I got it pretty dead center
Right.
with those 3. So it's like Adam Hughes, it is Adi
Yeah.
Granov, and it's Joshua Middleton.
Sure,
Right,
yeah,
sure, yeah,
absolutely.
So like when a lot of people like list their influences, I feel like you can sort of pick and like kind of see, but I feel like with mine it's pretty dead center. Like
Yeah,
you put
right.
mine like next to there, just like, oh yeah, I can definitely see where he got everything from.
When you're picking like your style, do you often find that you're like leaning towards something that you already have strength in, or did you fight to get the thing that you wanted to make?
A bit of both. Like
Right.
in high school, I definitely fought because I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
I was like 16 years old, just trying to do something. And then you kind of have to just realize, just if you just draw, it's gonna get there eventually naturally. Like you can't really, if you fight too hard, you're just gonna come out with
Right.
crap.
Right. Yeah. So,
like-
you kind of eventually find something that's a
Yeah.
more intuitive. Or,
And then once you get more like just experience and like actually figure out what you're doing, then you can like forcibly experiment and just try different things and like throw things in there, see what sticks.
so there's obviously a level of like practice
Mhm.
and skill and things like that. But at what point in the process do you have, or do you ever have to start like learning something more formal? Like I think of like the anatomy things or like the idea of perspective or whatever. Was that a kind of a formal thing, or was it just like you just knew when it looked right, you knew when it didn't? Like an
Definitely a
intuitive
formal
piece?
thing. Like in high school, it was definitely just I drew, and if it looked good, then I would go with it.
Right.
But I did go to Sheridan College for technical illustration,
Right.
which is like the opposite of college.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
manuals and cutaways and like straight lines and perspective. But like
Yeah.
that helped me a lot. Like
Sure.
why I like drawing backgrounds a lot, because
Right.
I learned that perspective formally, and we had anatomy classes and all that. So all of that definitely helped. Like I
Right.
leveled up so much just my first year of college.
Right.
So I definitely say like if you're an artist that you want to get into this, definitely try to find like, even if it's not college, just like a class at your like community center or something. Just
Right.
learn that structure, and then you can just like throw it away and bend it and have fun with it however you want.
Are you still working with like models, or do you use like reference images and things like that?
Yeah. I have like an anatomy model on my desk, just like to look
Oh,
at with,
awesome.
like, all
Yeah.
the muscles, and like half of it's muscles, half of it's skeleton. So like I'll look at that a lot. I have a book that I constantly have open. It's like anatomy for sculptors.
Oh, right.
And it's like it's for like 3D modeling, but it's like every part of the body you can imagine, and every like angle and like cutaway and everything.
Well, that's
So, like,
awesome.
Yeah,
I've
super cool.
I've got an anatomy book at home too, but not for that reason.
I think it's called a magazine.
Oh yeah, no. Oh.
What's the hardest part of the body to draw and get right? Or is there like an angle that you're like, I don't want to draw this at? Like,
or is it a part you wouldn't expect?
The parts you wouldn't expect are the easiest to draw.
Yeah. So when you spend the most time drawing, I get it.
Yeah. But I'd say like hands are hard,
Sure.
just because like there's so much going on that you don't expect
Yeah.
and you don't realize.
Sure, yeah, and there's so much detail and stuff. Now we're all just like first year college students, like high as hell, like looking at our hands.
Yeah.
Hey, there is a lot going on there.
So many bones.
It's sort of a surprise that more superheroes don't wear mittens. Just, like in the early days, just to make it easier. Like, we got to get this page out the door.
just arm cannons, arm knives.
Yes, yeah. Oh.
The 90s makes so much more sense now.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to another question from the Discord. From Big Bear, who asks, is there a piece that was the most difficult for you to draw? So, I mean, we talked about, obviously, like, cityscapes can be really challenging. Is there something from, like, maybe another book or something that, like God, that thing took me so long?
Not that I can think of.
It's so funny, we had...
It all comes easy to Jamal Campbell.
Yeah, God,
you heard
that's
it here.
Yeah.
Like, I can't think of a specific thing, but I will say, like, drawing comics, it takes so long and you're constantly doing it that, like, if you have art block, like, you can't just not do it. Like, you have deadlines, you have stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's definitely parts where things took longer than I expected or wanted it to, just because, like, I don't want to draw today, but I have a deadline tomorrow. Like,
The bit that I keep coming back to is there's all these like formal technical things, right? Like I read a ton of comics, but if you asked me to lay out a story and kind of figure out like how many panels is this amount of action or this amount of dialogue, I wouldn't be able to do it. How hard was that part? Like as you're starting to make layouts and doing interiors and stuff like that, like how much of a process was that, or were you just like I've been reading these so long, I know exactly what I want this to
no, it was
look like?
definitely a process. Like on my first book, Prowler, I had someone do layouts for me because I had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
So like just having someone do the layouts, like not like ink, pencil, whatever, just laying out this head goes here, this head goes here, this panel goes here.
Right.
I learned a lot from that because I didn't know what I was going to do with that. Like
Yeah.
I was kind of the same as you, even though I read comics, like I don't know how to make them or craft them at that point.
Right.
So like having someone break that down literally panel by panel, page by page in like the roughest form you could ever see. Like,
Right.
that definitely helped a lot.
Because I imagine it's I imagine it's like the anatomy thing where you got to learn the
Yeah.
rules first, and then you can say like, now I'm gonna have someone like stand outside of a panel, and now I'm gonna mess with the borders and
Yeah, it's
stuff like that.
we have this thing, like, I don't know if it's artists in general, but it was definitely like my graduation class. Like, draw a bicycle from memory.
Oh my
God.
Do you know how hard that actually is? Like, you have the image of a bicycle in your head. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's 2 wheels, it's like handles, but like, how does it actually look? Like,
Oh yeah, so more than just even like anatomy, yeah, you're gonna have to learn. Like I've seen some artists like have like books on like engineering and things like that because
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I have to build a spaceship. It's like, well, how would a spaceship actually work though? Like, it's like the details that you start having to think about. You end up becoming a bit of like a master in a lot of different things probably because you just understand how things work.
yeah, like for portfolio reviews, one of the like most common things you'll hear is like, don't just draw superheroes. Like,
Yeah,
don't
of
just
course.
draw like Superman flying in the sky. Like, draw a dog, draw a horse, draw a car, draw a carriage, draw, you know, like everyday things, because
they're gonna show up.
90% of the time that's what you're drawing in comics.
Totally. That makes it makes a ton of sense. It's less sexy to
Yeah.
as for a portfolio, but yeah, it makes a lot
I mean,
of sense.
less sexy for you, but like editors
Yeah.
will be like, oh my
Totally.
god.
Right. Yeah.
Look at the bike
Look
on
at
that
the
guy.
couch.
Yeah.
So then when or something like Far Sector where you have like those 3 different alien species and they've all got their own societies and their own architecture and their own vehicles and all that kind of stuff.
Here comes the lore guy.
Where do you start? Like you just I know there's a couple of like clues about how they are, but like how do you decide what the clothes are going to look like or things like do you have like do you go to a particular kind of reference? Like I think these people are like elves. I'm gonna make them look elfish, or you know what I mean? Like
Kind of like
Yeah.
when I started on Far Sector, like Nora is like such an amazing like sci-fi writer and world builder that like when I came on, she had this huge document, like this lore Bible on like
I love that.
the like 500 years before what happens in Far Sector.
Oh,
like,
I
all
love
of
that.
I know
timeline,
that. That's right up your alley. Big
how all the
surprise.
different aliens evolved and stuff like that. So like I literally had a Bible that's like the most interesting shit ever. That like
You
most
have
of
the
it-
the
99% of it
Silmarillion
is
for
not in the comic. Like most of this isn't in Far Sector, but it's just like
easy.
It's a good thing I'm sitting down.
yeah, it's just all this background info that like I could take from and just like analyze and like just spark creativity of like
Right.
drawing and like how all that stuff worked out.
Yeah.
God, that is exactly the thing you wanted to hear.
It's like my life's mission now to get my hands on that. That's 500 years of lore from Far Sector.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
man.
not as good as the other JGL movie, but 500 Days.
500 Days of
Summer,
Wow.
yeah.
Good reference. That's
Yeah,
nice. Yeah.
topical. That's amazing. I think that do you still have like any of your original books and stuff that you were drawing as a kid, like your comics, like your first actual like rough comics that you created?
Yeah, somewhere in my mom's place, like
Yeah,
probably in a box somewhere.
Oh,
But
neat.
yeah.
that's what I want.
Do you remember any of them?
Oh,
what they
yeah.
were about or anything?
Not really. I remember we had to do this one thing in I think high school. Like, it was like create a comic, like a 1-page comic.
Right.
But like, I went to the same high school as Paraceline, who's also an artist. Like,
Right.
he does like Static and a bunch of like Spider-Man stuff in it.
Right.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yeah.
So like we always had this kind of rivalry. So like even though we only had to
Love
do like
love a healthy rivalry.
even though we only had to do like a page or like a 5-page comic, I think we both did like 15 pages. So like all I remember was mine was like super sketchy and like I was like I don't know 15 years old, so it was
Right.
super edgy, like
Right.
assassins.
Hell
and, like, everyone was
yeah.
wearing suits and
Of
like
course.
robot dogs and like I don't remember like the actual story or whatever. It was probably crap, but-
do you still like do you enjoy actually the writing part of it? Like do you do
Yeah,
any-
yeah.
yeah.
Like, it was just the kind of thing where like I was always interested in it, but like I didn't know where to start. Like I don't know how to like craft a story, but like
Right.
it was cool. I got the opportunity to do the like story meetings with Brian Michael Bendis and David Walker and Naomi. So like
Wow,
I
yeah.
learned a lot from there. And then again with Far Sector, just having like the full script and like the lore Bible and everything, like seeing how she crafts just
Right.
stories in general definitely taught me a lot. So now I am getting more into writing. Like I wrote an 8-page Nightwing story in Batman Black and White.
Right.
Oh yeah.
I did a 2-parter Nightwing story in Batman Urban Legends.
Right.
a big throughway of Nightwing, as you can hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely like, I want to write more and do a lot more of that.
Is there a character that you haven't gotten a chance to either draw or write that you were like dying to get your hands on?
I mean, my two favorite characters are Nightwing and Zatanna. So like,
Yeah.
I've gotten so close so many times to like getting the main Nightwing book, but like for some reason, other reason, like a writer like drops out or it doesn't like work out. So like that's still like the thing I'm missing.
Yeah.
Like I always get to do like things around the book, but not the actual
Sure,
book
yeah.
itself.
Right.
So yeah, getting to do a Nightwing book, getting to do a Zatanna book would be like amazing. That's my like.
Do you have a rough idea of like a story with the two characters that you would want to do?
Yeah, like I've pitched these.
Oh
things.
yeah, I guess you can't say it here, but
I am on it. I'm trying to get this to happen.
Oh, I love that.
look, you hear it, DC execs. You're listening.
I promise I'm not about to ask about the lore Bible.
That being said,
That's one very particular way of working, right? And you said you also came on a bit later in that process. But what are those kind of story meetings like? You know, with Bendis, what was that like? Like, what's that process? Is it like just everyone sits down, they go, "Who has ideas?" Or like,
Yeah,
what's
pretty much.
like,
It's just like, hey, what do you want to do? Just like, and it's just throwing out like, because Naomi was like from scratch, like not connected to anything. It's like, what do we want to do with this character? Like, is it going to be part of like Superman stuff? Is it going to be part of like the Legion? Is it going to be part of like? We were just throwing ideas of like, how can we connect this to the DC universe? And then we decided on we don't.
Yeah, I mean, is there a part of it too? Like, you hear about it with some filmmakers, where like some filmmakers like start with the script, and that some filmmakers are like, "There's a set piece I want to do," and you kind of make the big stunt or something. Like, I imagine Mission Impossible starts with, "What are we making Tom do?" And then they build the movie. Right?
I think it's Tom comes and goes, "This is what I want to do."
Is that part of like that process in the room where you go like, "Do you know there's a thing I think would be really cool looking, or a thing I want to draw? If we could make that."
I have a
part
reimagining of the history of the Hawks.
Venditti did it. It's fine now. It's all fine now.
Yeah, like,
Don't investigate further.
there isn't like, we didn't have like a specific scene in mind,
Right.
but like, I know David Walker wanted to go into it like, we want this to be in like a small town. She's the only black girl. Like,
Right.
Brian Michael Bendis definitely like, I want this for my kids. So like, adopted child, like learning about herself. So there were those things going into it. And for me, because like this was the first big thing I was doing,
Right.
I was very hesitant to like speak up, even though they told me like, hey, just what do you want to do? Just
Right.
So my big thing was I wanted her costume to like grow with her.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why like in season 1 it was very like just had the shoulder pads and everything else was like bare bones.
Right.
And then in season 2 she got that like costume and power upgrade.
Right.
So like I'm very much a fan of starting small and like growing and growing. Like one of my favorite animes is Gurren Lagann.
Okay,
and that very much starts off like literally in the ground, and then it just gets exponentially bigger and bigger as that show goes on.
Right.
So yeah, that's one thing I definitely wanted to do with that book.
That's awesome.
Do we want to grab some? Does anybody in the audience want to ask a question?
Does anybody have a question for Jamal?
Yeah, absolutely. Put up your hand. Yeah. Oh, here we got a mic for you. Look at that. I want to hear that pretty voice. Come on.
I was just curious, following your Instagram. So I saw the PS buff Diana for life. So I was curious when it comes to like drawing like muscles and stuff like that. Like, is there like, what tips and advice do you have? Because I imagine like like density and like details and stuff like that is a lot more complicated than just like your standard American. Like,
The more the better. It's the 90s again.
I know I'm appealing to somebody at this panel. I won't say who.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it comes down to like get an anatomy book basically.
Right.
Like
Sure.
the best thing is to like look at the muscles and see how they form and everything like that. Like you're not gonna get that just looking at a person. Like you could look at the most shredded person in existence, like buff, like they haven't drunk water in 4 days, super dehydrated, and you still won't be able to tell like how all that shit works.
Right.
So like definitely get an anatomy book, like learn the muscles, and then from then you can exaggerate and have fun with it and like make that super buff Wonder Woman that I always draw, that no one will tell me otherwise not to.
Preach, buddy.
That's awesome.
Not gonna get a complaint here. Anybody else?
Any other
I had a
questions?
question.
Stump.
Yeah.
Oh, here
I've
we
heard
go.
from numerous artists that they hate drawing horses.
Mm-hmm.
Have you experienced
Yeah,
a
you brought
hatred?
up horse already.
A
Is
hatred
that-
because you already brought it up, and that made me think of it.
Yeah, that's.
Have you experienced a hatred for horses as an artist, or is that just the Kubert school blowing smoke?
No, like, I personally, I don't have that big of an issue drawing horses, just because it was that big thing that artists always tell you that like horses are hard to draw. So
It is a big thing. Yeah.
I think I got paranoid and learned, like, forced myself, like, how to draw a horse.
Right,
So I think
yeah.
I've got that locked down.
I can only draw a horse like from the half, in the meme where it's like half of it's good and half of it. I only do the crap half.
You mean the face half, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I know the back half. I know quite well.
I think, like, the secret with horses that you have to realize is, like, they have spider legs.
Right.
Their legs are super gross.
Yeah.
And, like, once you, like, draw them with spider legs, it looks like the perfect horse.
Yeah. When I learned the patriarchy wasn't really about horses, I gave up. Yeah.
Hey, Barbie, great movie. Any other questions?
Yeah, we got another question here.
Let's do it.
Step into the stump. Stump Junkman. There we go.
So for all three of you guys, like if you could draw, who's your like dream drawing like character you'd like to draw?
Ooh. Okay.
Assuming, of course,
Yeah,
that
like,
we
yeah,
could
like,
all
if you could-
actually
if you
pull it
could
off.
draw, yeah.
Because I know Jamal can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's start with you, Reed.
My dream character to draw?
I mean, I have an idea who it would be.
No. I don't, actually,
Black Canary or Big Barda.
at both, yeah. Why do I have a type or
Together.
something?
Wow, I can't
No,
imagine.
probably Big Barda. I've always liked that armor, and I like all of like the New Gods like weird geometry stuff that Kirby had with like the zigzag lines and just like random circles and stuff like that. I always liked that kind of stuff. So if I could draw, it would be neat to draw Big Barda with all of her armor. And if I could figure out how to do like that Kirby crackle, like all that kind of stuff, that would be the stuff I would do. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like it's funny. I did a lot more drawing when I was a kid. I was like that was one of the like paths I was heading towards as a kid was getting into illustration, and even looked at going to school for it. And I ended up doing like graphic design for a long time, which is really different than obviously. But I think for me, I always leaned more towards space. I think for sure. I think the excitement of just it can be anything, right? I think that's one of the great things about the lanterns in general, which is like anyone can be anything. Anyone can be a lantern. Literally anything. Like
Yeah.
and so for me, I think like that really has a lot of appeal to me. So, like someone like Liesel Pond.
Liesel, is that the bacteria
Yeah,
Green
it is.
Lantern? Yeah.
I think that's the one I would. That for me, it's like it can be a planet. It
Yeah.
can be a bacteria.
Plus, you get to draw all the constructs too, right? So
Yeah.
if you ever just get tired of drawing the same lantern over and over, you just have them make something.
yeah,
kinda
yeah,
cool
or change
whatever.
their costume because sometimes.
Yeah, like, that was the best thing about Far Sector, where,
Right.
like, the constructs were all, like, anime references. So, like,
Yeah.
there was a big gauntlet from, like, Soul Eater. There was, like, the giant mech from Evangelion. Like,
Oh wow, yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
cool way to
Like a
sneak in other stuff you want to draw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then also just with her costume, one of the ideas that Nora had was that she's always going to accessorize. So she's always going to have, like,
Right.
a construct of, like, earrings or a big coat or a cape or something
Yeah.
like that. So we really got to play with
I love
how
that
she
cape.
looked.
That kind of like rain
Yeah.
cape look. That's amazing. I love that.
So
Okay.
what about you? You've already talked about Nightwing. You've already talked about Zatanna.
Yeah.
Who else would you want to draw?
I mean, those are my biggest two.
Jamal, no.
But I mean, I'd love to draw. I did a couple issues of Green Arrow.
Oh
So I would
Yeah.
love to draw another, like, Green Arrow, Black Canary books
Yeah,
at
yeah.
a point.
The only other one I would put out there is you brought him up, but Hawkman. Like I
Yeah.
think that look is so like cool and classic. The big wings and
Yeah.
like I don't know, something about like that costume. It's sort of ridiculous in a way. Like when he had like the red boots with the yellow like lines that made them look like hawk like feet. But there's something I kind of like about that too. Hawkman would be neat if I could draw.
Yeah. Which you can.
Which I can. Just to reiterate, I can't.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
if I could.
It's progressively better drawing, but then a huge leap. for
Yes.
me to-
Yeah, I think we need to move further down the table to make it to scale.
Awesome. Is there anybody else who has any questions? Yeah, sure. We got a question over there. Why don't we-
You said that you sometimes you have moments where you just don't feel like drawing, and you have a deadline coming up. I'm just kind of wondering, like, what's your process of kind of getting out of that funk? Do you think sometimes when you are in that funk that your work sometimes suffer, or do you kind of like persevere and find a way to make it better to the way you want it to be?
Art block, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
when you have like a really inspiring meeting about drawing something. You get really excited. Someone go, and then you get home and someone breaks all your pencils. You got a real Becky's art block.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the deadline, really. Like, with working on interiors, because the deadlines are so tight,
Sure.
you kind of don't have the opportunity to work it out. So you kind of just have to draw what you draw and try to be happy with it. But with covers, there's definitely, if I'm not feeling a cover, I'll have time to like throw it away and
Right.
go.
Have you
play
done that a
video-
lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it happens all the time with covers. Like, sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Right.
So like, at that point, I would just take a break, play video games, go outside, see people, like, not think about it.
Right.
And after I've not thunk about it for a long time, once I get back to it, my mind is fresh and I can just do it.
Do you have any kind of like personal techniques when you don't have that kind of, when it's interiors, when it's deadlines, I've been up against deadlines too. I'm like a chronic procrastinator.
Oh, are you?
And,
yeah.
and I end up just staying up really
As
late.
a man
but,
who's
like,
hired you, yes.
hey, the work's good. But like, do you, just take a quick 10-minute break or like take a nap, or like what do you do to kind of like reset so that you can push through? Because it's
Yeah, it's
like
usually,
if you're already kind of struggling and having that, I know it's hard to just keep going until it's done.
yeah, it's usually that. Just like take a break,
Right.
like get your eyes off of it,
Yeah.
and then get back to where you're refreshed. Also, like, because comics, there's so much to draw in any given issue. You can also like just go to the next page, like,
Right.
try something else, draw a different character, like.
Yeah, that's true too.
There's a thing with me that, I mean, I don't know if, again, if it's similar with like comic art, but I know with graphic design, often when I get a project, I don't necessarily know how I want to start. Often what I'll do is I have like a bunch of like coffee table books for like inspiration. So sometimes it's like things as far as like turn of the century like signage from like France and things like that. Just like things to like get me excited about art and design and things like that. Do you have any like do you draw inspiration from books, or do you go to any places like Dribble? I know I love a lot.
Yeah, I have like next to my desk this huge shelf just filled with art books from
Nice.
like
Yeah.
movies and games, and like I get a lot of like Japanese stuff from like Japanese illustrators because
Right.
Sure,
they
yeah.
are insane. They will draw every single detail of a background that I didn't know existed.
Right. Yeah.
So I just
Like,
like
is someone having sex in that room, in that building? Like,
Yeah.
wait, is that my bedroom?
oh my god.
But like, yeah, just looking at different artists, like
Right.
specifically people who don't draw like you do will
Right.
help a lot,
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
just like it tickles that part of your brain that you don't normally exercise.
Totally.
It's funny. I was looking at some of like we've had Liam Sharp on the podcast, and I remember looking at some of his work, and it inspired me because I was like, I can't even imagine where you would start to do that much detail in any piece of work. And his like this like old like classic like metal like album cover stuff just like really got me to do a lot of really cool work.
Well, we were talking about like drawing buildings and doing all those kind of backgrounds. So when we were talking to him, we were talking about the Brave and the Bold.
Yeah.
That he did, where they go to like Tirnanog and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's all these like vines and leaves and stuff, and every individual leaf. As someone that's not an artist, I was like, that would take me 3 years.
Yeah.
This book would never come out. I'd never figure
I mean,
it out.
there are some books that don't come out.
Well, yeah, fair
Looking at you,
enough.
Alex Ross. Like,
Fair enough. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I think that it's for me. I love just like looking at other people's artwork and things. I know for me, I don't know if there's a process for, especially when you're working with somebody who has like an idea of what they're trying to do. I haven't like when I work with when I've worked with like created logos for businesses and things like that, like I have a lot of questions that I ask everybody about, like what's the intentionality, what's the future of this thing, right? Do you have like a series of questions that you try to ask?
Yeah, not necessarily a series of questions, but we definitely get on calls and just talk it out.
Yeah.
Like a big thing with Joshua Williamson is like there are so many different types of Superman out there, like so many different like ways you can portray him and things like that. So our first meeting was just like, what's your Superman?
Right.
Like
Electric blue.
Yeah. But like we were both like,
what is your
movies
Superman?
And the 90s cartoon.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I was a cartoon kid. That's the only Superman I knew growing up.
Yeah,
It's the only one I
so
saw before
good.
collecting comics. So like, and it was fortunate that that's the type of thing he wanted to do with the book as well.
Yeah, I'm still dying for another chonky Superman.
Yeah.
I want one, especially
You
live
love
action.
like Tim Sale
Oh,
Superman. Like,
yeah,
a big boy, a big soft boy.
Well, I want a big soft boy. That's what a farm boy is.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Like
yeah.
that's why I like drawing Superman the way I do. Like
Yeah.
just make him the chonkiest, like
Yes.
beefcake,
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Yeah,
Takes
what real
like
men
an
look like.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I look like I've been lifting.
Yeah, you look like
Hey.
Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Do we have another question? I think I saw one over there. Yeah. Right over there.
Yeah, you were talking about how hard it is to draw a bike from memory. Is there any inanimate object that you've drawn enough that you can just like pull it
From
up
memory,
like,
ooh.
really easily?
I mean, from all the times we did the bike thing at school, I can draw a bike pretty well.
What kind of bike though?
Oh, there are different kinds.
Yeah, I could do a cruiser, but not really the road bike kind of guy. Fat bikes are my specialty though. Yeah.
Yeah, what's something that comes super easy now, or
I think cars come
Sure.
pretty easily now. Like, I wasn't necessarily like into cars as a teenager, but like I love just the look of Corvettes. I like driving games. So, like,
Sure.
yeah,
I like just the form of drawing a car. Just feels nice on the hand.
right.
Yeah, sure. I love that.
So yeah, cars are one thing, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to think of like a specific object out of like millions that exist in the world.
Is there a thing that like when you see it in a thing like in an outline or story or something, you're like, I do not want to draw this. Like
crowds?
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you should look at a comic book. Like, anytime you see a crowd, like actually look at it and see like what they actually did.
It's just like
draw.
a
Right.
couple like out like tops of heads and then like some blurry color.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just had. I feel so stupid. I just had an insane thought while you were talking about cars, and I was like, "Oh, cars! That's great when you're drawing Superman. You're in Metropolis a bunch. It's good that you like cars. I'm sure you draw a lot of cars." And then my brain paused, and I was like, "Oh, he has to draw different types of cars. Like if I was on the Superman book, the street would be lined with like 10 identical. The one car I learned how to draw 10 times along the street. No variation." All the same color. Yeah, exactly.
I only know how to draw a blue car. That's as far as it goes. So do you find that's God, I love
I'll
you.
be over here if anyone needs
Yeah,
me.
no, I'm glad. You're a special kind of guy, and we really appreciate you.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome. Is there any other questions that we have from the crowd? No. Oh my God, I love the frog hat, by the way. Amazing. Very good. What about you?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Good. I'm glad that you prompted that.
I have a question. What's your favorite DC book right now that you aren't working on?
Ooh, great question.
Honestly, like,
And what's your least favorite?
I don't have that much time to like read comics, so like I'm not super up to date.
Yeah, sure.
We learned that he doesn't know how to read.
But I will say like super biased, not like surprising Nightwing.
Yeah.
That book's great,
it's a
too,
good
yeah.
run
It's a
right
good
now.
book, and like the gimmick comics those two do are like insane. Like
Totally.
the POV or like the entire comic is like one image.
The
like,
one panel
Yeah.
comic was
like they're
crazy,
doing really
yeah.
cool things with that book that you just don't see anywhere else.
Yeah.
I will also say like the anthology stuff, like Batman Black and White.
Right.
They just launched The Brave and the Bold. Like
Mhm.
the Mitch Gerads and Tom King Joker story in that first issue was
that's great.
insanely good.
That's a really good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, if that's all of our questions, why don't we send ourselves off? Jamal, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Is there anywhere people can find you online? Come to your booth. What booth are you at? Yeah.
Thanks for having me. I don't know my booth number, but it's right in front of the doors as you come in. So
hey, there we go.
Nice. Yeah.
You can find me not on Instagram, but on Instagram at Price14. And my website is jamalcampbell.com. Pretty easy.
Yeah, there we go.
Nice. Yeah, let's give a hand for Jamal Campbell.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we are Dr. DC. You can find us on all the social medias. Our website's drdcpodcast.com.
And we're gonna be at the Canadian Podcast Awards booth in this building downstairs. So
Absolutely.
You can come say hi. Come talk comics.
And if you like what you're listening to here, you might like our other live podcast that we're going to be doing
Tomorrow. Ghost Facers, Supernatural rewatch. So if you like Supernatural,
I'm sorry I surprised you with the other podcast that we recorded.
I wasn't ready. If you like Supernatural, we'll be back here tomorrow at 11.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, FanExpo.
This was a Brain Freeze podcast.